y'all, I'm Elisa and I am the Scrappy Wife behind scrappywife.com, and today I have a technique video for you. My sister Amanda is in town and is going to show me some watercolor basic techniques that she has learned throughout the years and her years as an artist. And as she shows me, I thought we'd just leave the camera rolling so that you all could see it too and gather up some different techniques. Here we go. The first technique that Amanda showed me is the basic watercolor wash, and it's simple enough, something that we can all do. You choose a very large brush, get it wet, choose your color, and do a basic wash over the page. Amanda took advanced art all through high school and even has a degree in art as well as teaching art in high school for multiple years. So the techniques she taught me are fun, easy to do, and you'll see her on the right hand side and me on the left hand side as we work through these techniques. This particular wash is a great way for just adding basic color to the background of any sort of page or project. The more water you use, the farther your color goes and feathers out on the edges. Technique number 2 is the lifting technique, and for this one we're going to use a dry paper towel. You'll see Amanda come in on that watercolor wash she was just doing. While it's still wet, she uses the dry paper towel, the corner of it, to actually create a very crisp, clean line right here where she lifts some of the color off of the page. We are working on actual watercolor paper, so it is soaking in, but this is a wonderful technique for adding a textured look to your paper. You can use a crumbled up paper towel to kind of move that texture around, and it's fun to play with lifting the color and creating some different shades and interest on your page. Technique number 3 is the wet on wet technique. So we're going to start with that same wash principle as we add this to the paper, and we're just going to add a wash to our page and then come in with a second color while the first color is still wet, and let the wet on wet, as the technique name describes, let the watercolors blend on their own, because the water will mix and move on its own and creates a beautiful, soft, subtle technique, a nice blend. And you can see Amanda adding it right here. I love how it feathers out. I love the softness of it. You can even, she's showing me how you can blow it around, and I'm showing her sometimes I like to do the drip. Wet on wet is one of my very favorite watercolor techniques. Technique number 4 was a new one for me. It is the dry brush lifting technique. And what we did was we dried off our brush really well and used our brush to constantly lift the color off, which was different. Every time you push or move the brush across the page, then you dry it off once again, and you can create all kinds of patterns. I love the subtleness of it. I think this was one of my favorite techniques that she taught me today, and something that I'm going to use for sure in my journaling, creative journaling, and art journaling, because I think it's such a fun way to add a subtle background or a subtle pattern to a page. Now, Amanda didn't name this next technique, but I'm going to call it the water fill technique. And it is one that I have used before and I love. What you're going to do for the water fill technique is first get your brush wet and paint with just water. I painted a heart over here. Amanda painted a line. And once you have the water there, it acts as a boundary, and you can drop your watercolor in there and it will not go past where you painted with your water. So you can see I did that heart outline and it is staying put in place to where that water was. If you extend your water out, the watercolor will flow and extend out with it. It was a super fun technique, and you'll see Amanda is using wet on wet again to add another burst of color into hers. She's pulling it down. We talked a lot about the purpose of using watercolors, how forgiving watercolors can be because of their looseness, their abstractness at times, and they are just a really fun medium to use and play with because the beauty of the colors mixing together looks great no matter your artistic level. Like I said, Amanda is a very highly trained artist. I have never taken a formal art class in my life, and so it was fun to see how these techniques kind of came out differently with our two background levels, but I could easily see how they were applied. And you can see Amanda kind of pulling out that color now. She's not adding any more color, but as she pulls it out, it gets lighter on the edges. And it was just fun to play with the color mixing together. Going to see us here starting to combine some of the techniques we've done so far. I'm going to do a lifting technique with a paper towel to add texture to the heart I'm working on. This was such a fun activity. Have you ever done the side-by-side crafting thing? My sister and I are both crafty people, both artistic, but we've never done it side-by-side like this, and we had a fabulous time. It was about 40 minutes of just playing and talking and her showing me things and how why the colors were mixing in certain ways, and it was a great experience. If you have not tried it, I highly recommend getting with a friend or family member and giving it a try. The next technique Amanda showed me was the resist technique, and all you need for this one is a white crayon, a white waxy crayon. So we just have the typical Crayola, and you want to press pretty hard on your page, and you can draw anything you want. We kind of just did random blobs, and then you just brush watercolor over it, and very subtle shapes start to come out on your page. You'll see Amanda's kind of squiggles coming out, and then I'm going to do a wash over on my side, and I drew the letter A over there for my sister's name. And it's a fun way to add the pattern. You see it's not completely white. If I had scribbled harder, it would have stayed white, but I like the subtleness. Technique number 7 is using salt in your watercoloring, and this one was new to me and so fun. A little bit messy, but I highly recommend it. So we're adding washes of watercolor. As you can see here, I'm doing a couple colors. Amanda's mixing some blues and purples. You can tell our favorite color is purple, can't you? We use it so much in here. So you add a nice wash of watercolor and then just iodized salt. You can also use rock salt or sea salt to get some different textures, and you just sprinkle the salt over your watercolor when it is wet. And what happens is the salt kind of soaks up some of the color. We're going to use my heat tool here to dry it. We had a lot of water down, so it did take a long time to dry. So you're drying with the heat tool, or you can just let it air dry depending on how much you've used. You let it dry, and then you gently rub the salt off of your paper. And what happens is it leaves this cool speckled texture that I have never seen in watercolor before. And you can see Amanda here is kind of creating a sunset. We're letting her watercolor dry a little bit before and then adding the salt on top of it. And again, we're trying to let it dry really well before we start rubbing the salt off. So Amanda's coming in really gently, and it's very hard to see on the camera, but I promise if you try this technique, you will not regret it, because I was amazed at the fun texture it created, and just I've never seen watercolor do that before. So give the salt technique a try. Let me know what you think, if you liked it. I think it kind of looks sparkly in a way to me. I was just amazed. I cannot wait to try this in an actual project, in a card, or on a journaling page. I think it was so much fun. We rubbed the salt off with a finger, and then of course it made a little bit of a mess, but not too bad to clean up afterwards. Technique number 8 is the splatter technique, and if you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you know I love me a good paint splatter. So in order to splatter paint, you just need a very wet brush, and you see we chose 2 different kinds of brushes. I chose a bigger brush, and I ended up with bigger droplets, which is kind of my style. Amanda chose this fan brush, and her drops, her splatters are much finer. And I like that you can kind of control the difference between the two. The more water you're using for your splatters, the bigger the drops are going to be. So the less water, you'll end up with kind of a finer splattered look. Then you'll see that Amanda, once these are dry, she even takes it and masks off part of the page and adds splatters to the other part, which is kind of a cool idea in making some lines with the splatters. It's subtle, but I really like how it ended up looking, and you can concentrate your splatters in one area, and it's kind of a fun play on color and texture again. Something that I have never done that Amanda showed me is, as your splatters are drying, you can even play with your splatters. She uses a very fine brush here and kind of draws out a few of her splatters, making them into like little sunbursts or little rays, which was super fun to do. And I have never messed with my splatter paint before in this way. And it's something I'm going to try because I like the organic look of it and I like the different shapes that it creates. The last technique that we are covering, I am calling abstract scribbles. And this is the one I am so excited about. All you have to do for this technique is start out and just do a very loose painting. Right here, we're doing florals. Amanda's doing a closed floral. I did some big loops and we're adding multiple colors. We're using that wet on wet technique to let the colors blend together. Amanda's drawing out some green. It's really loose, nothing in particular. We're not trying to imitate a particular flower. We're just, like I said, drawing out the colors. You can see Amanda using that fan brush again to draw out a few of the colors and to add some splatters along the way, which I thought was super fun. And once your flower or your floral is done, you want to completely dry it, and then you go back. We're using a micron pen because it's a permanent ink that won't run with water, and you literally just scribble around the edges. Sometimes you come up out of your painting over the top of it, sometimes you're in the color and you're just scribbling, and this is creating a beautiful abstract look, and it was so cool. I was amazed. I've seen this done before, and you can see Amanda even adds some words, some loose words and scribbles on the ground. I've seen this done before on YouTube, and I thought, oh my goodness, that looks so hard to do because my scribbles would look terrible, and I gave her a gold pen right here to add some gold highlights. But you'll see in a second, Amanda's there on the right, mine's drawing on the left. I'm like, oh my goodness, I guess I'll try. And so I start scribbling around and adding some sketchiness to my flower. I was so surprised at the outcome. It is not as hard as I thought it was going to be, and I've even since used it in my Bible journaling already. This was such a fun technique. Amanda is showing me there on the right side that sometimes you can do your scribbling in advance. So she is scribbling some big raindrops, and then she's going to drop some color over top of that. So you can either do the scribbling first or at the end, depending on what look you are going for. Like I said, this was a really fun technique for me, and I can't wait to experiment more with it. It was very freeing. I'm not great at drawing specific things, but this abstractness with the scribbles, I feel like is something that I can do. So I urge you to give it a try as well. It has been so fun having my sister teach me some watercolor basics. I hope you were able to learn something too. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button, also that bell notification button. I hope you have a fantastic day, and as always, keep it creative.